Hello, Andrew.
Hey, good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Let me just tweet that this is happening real quick. Excellent. Tweet is live. All right. So today we have 7 projects to review. Normally, if you're watching and you're wondering, well, I signed up for this thing and Daniel's face was on the poster image. Where is Daniel? Daniel's not actually going to be joined today. Something came up, unfortunately, but he'll be back next time. So today we have Andrew and I, and we will start with a project that we actually took a look at last time that has since made an interesting pivot. They started as the self-driving boats, and now they are HODL in the ocean. Andrew, you want to screen share?
All right, let's do it.
So some context for this one, as you're pulling it up. This company was the self-driving boat, and as the name implies, they were building self-driving boats. And the question that we had for them last time was, well, you have to figure out a really concrete use case for this that's not kind of that will actually get traction, on the order of days or weeks, months, as opposed to like years of noodling around. And they ended up on this.
Can you see my screen just fine?
Yep.
All right, so I think last time we reviewed it, like Rishi said, there was I remember there being a similar text message feed down the middle of the page explaining what they did, and we thought that was pretty memorable. And their pivot now is HODL in the ocean, solar powered GPUs in international waters. So the first thing that comes to mind when I read this is, why do I need a GPU that's solar powered and which is also in the ocean? So let's see if they answer my question as I scroll down here.
The answer is yes, they do answer. They attempt to answer that question.
So here are the perks: solar energy, liquid cooling, stick them in the North Pole. All right. So GPUs are used for a few things. Like the ones I can think of are obvious ones is crypto mining, or like we said here, training like deep learning models. And today your options are you go to Amazon EC2 or one of those similar services, and you kind of rent out some GPUs, and then you pay them on a per hour or per minute, per second, whatever it is basis. The other thing that you would do is you would buy like a rack of them. And if you're doing like production level stuff, you bring it home and then, or set up server and then you train it there. So the alternative now looks like you can do it in the ocean, which is very different. But the question is from the consumer's perspective, why is this better than any of those other options right now? So let's see if they help answer that question. Well, at the very least, they have a picture of the Doge pillow.
Would you look at that? We have our special guest has actually arrived.
Well, that's exciting. I very much concur with everything Andrew said. And exactly. Yeah, Rishi, if you could send me that link you're about to send me, that'd be great. You can just continue straight ahead.
All right. Well, actually, it's good chance for me to get some of Daniel's thoughts here too. Welcome, Daniel. I don't think they answered that second question. Okay. Actually, no, they kind of did with this thing right here. So they spent some years working in AI, and they thought that the CO2 production from training large models and energy consumption, whatever, is bad. So this is a more sustainable way of doing.
What is the actual atmospheric impact though of GPU models? Is this really the problem?
That's a great question.
Maybe of course the answer is that it's not, but the people think it is the problem. So who cares what the underlying number is? So, okay. So you can do it in a more sustainable way by doing it on international waters. And Elon, I see. Okay. Yeah. Seems interesting.
Yeah, I would say that there's some interesting bits here, but I think the first few questions that come to mind, you can probably do a little bit better job of highlighting that in the in the hero, in the tagline here, because the idea just, there's a few ways going about it, right? One way is you kind of just throw it out there and you're like, yeah, we're doing solar powered GPUs in the ocean, and the user's like, what? And then scrolls down and does all that other stuff. But it's also another thing to maybe like be more direct. Like sustainability is something that you're heavily leaning on that maybe you want to mention here. The environmental impact, if it's a real problem, maybe throw in some data backing that up. Just basically some more things to like stay what the problem is and have that person be like, yeah, like I recognize that this is a problem without needing to go like all the way down in order to find that out. But it's definitely an interesting idea, one that you would not say, like one that you would definitely remember. So I think that's that going for you.
I think that's right.
I think one reaction I think you're going to get to this idea is it's pretty out there, obviously, both literally and figuratively. And I think the format of the landing page, like while I like the idea for a certain type of product, the like text message sort of feels very friendly. I actually think you want to go for a design that injects a little bit more seriousness into it. Curious if you guys disagree with that, but I think given sort of the wildness of what you're doing, I think you need to have an air of a little bit more seriousness to make people think that this is actually going to become a reality.
Right. I think that's right. There's, of course, I think it's interesting. Doge and Elon really, in abstract, has created or popularized the kind of nihilism meme format where things are kind of relevant because they're funny / ironic. And a lot of founders in crypto land, I think, are taking this to new stratospheric heights. It'll be interesting if this bleeds into real companies. I haven't seen like a real company really take that concept to the extreme, but I agree that seriousness is probably useful. The exciting thing that's happening in the kind of ESG world that you could obviously capitalize on is, there's dollars that need to be deployed to ESG things. No one really knows what that means, but I think if you look the shape and part of it, you will get funding, irrespective of whether you have an underlying economic, unit economics that makes sense. It was kind of like, SoftBank came up and just had to fund basically new forms of mobility and logistics, regardless of whether they made economic sense. And I think ESG is a different variant of that. So you would have to look more seriously though. I think if you wanted to attract that type of attention. Cool.
Yeah, I guess one last thing I'll say about this is to directly answer the question that y'all posed to us, which is how does this feel like? What is the biggest risk? It would be to how much of a problem this is to the buyers. Because I can feel this slicing a few ways. One, they might not care as much about the sustainability aspect of how much their ML models are consuming, and this won't even be an option for them. And the other thing is for the ones who are environmentally conscious, who do care about sustainability, how much better are you guys than the other options? For example, like you mentioned here, that Google is carbon neutral and how they buy back their CO2. And the other thing would be, is this the most impactful thing they could be doing to stop their emissions? Or are there other things that are consuming more that they would want to focus on first? So the question there really boils down to, for the risk for this pivot, is how big of a problem this is actually for your customers. So that's kind of what I would take away from this, at least. So, all right, shall we move on to the next one?
Let's do it.
All right.
Next, we're actually revisiting an older one, but they've asked. We're not going to focus, I think, on the product too much today. They've asked an interesting question. I guess we'll have to focus on product as a result of their question, but it is that they have very specific competitors that they discovered, ironically, when doing an SEO revamp of their own. And in the process, they discovered, oh, wow, there are these other products that actually exist out there that are pretty good. I'm going to link you guys to these two products in a Zoom chat. And their question is, what should they do? Should they try to use them as, learning to figure out what they should build? Or should they kind of just ignore it, continue on, or some other option, number 3? It's basically a specific variant of the very common question, oh no, I discovered a very similar company, what should I do?
I'm not sure how far along these companies are, but like before I delve into specifics here, the general thing would be, my general point would be not really to worry about what other startups are doing, care more about what their customers are, who their customers are, and how they think about things. Because I don't think at this point you need to, I personally haven't heard of placement in Teal. Maybe they've raised like a fair amount of funding and have a bunch of users, but I would say, what can you learn from their customers, and insofar as like they do this thing really well, and this is the reason why people use them. They don't do this thing very well, which is why people stop using them or don't use them, and figure out what to focus on that can help you be a better product for your customers, really. So, I mean, I don't think it's building more features necessarily, like saying like, oh, I think the wrong mentality to have is look at another company and say, oh, wow, they have all these features. We need to be on feature parity with these guys and build up a bunch of stuff. I think what's more interesting is if you've come across a competitor to try to identify maybe some of their customers, why, and talk to them and be like, oh, why did you guys use this product? Like, what do they have? And maybe they come up with certain things that isn't necessarily a laundry list of features of why they decided to use them, but it's probably some specific reason. And if you can identify some sort of grouping of these specific reasons, and you can think, oh, well, we can do a better job on this one and this one, and then focus on those things, I think that's probably a better way of going about handling competition than trying to just build up all the features that they have. That's more general advice here. I haven't really looked at this specifically yet.
I think that's right. I mean, someone ought to write a book on I don't know, if someone were to write a book of like the common startup tropes, it definitely is the accidental, oh my God, discovered competitor heart sink moment. In reality, competitor is, two people that managed to make a landing page that maybe has like slightly more graphics than yours. And, one day they discover your side and they're having the same reaction. It's extremely rare for me to think of an industry. Actually, can't think of any product in tech. In some other industries, this happens, but not in tech, where there's just one company. I mean, even like the favorite monopoly of everyone today, Facebook, Snapchat, is still like, what is it, $90 billion business? So you'd be very happy having started that. So anyway, it's never just one business. So that's the first thing I would say. Maybe there's great things you can learn from them. I do think, by the way, like principally, the problem of job search is totally unsolved. And I don't think anyone's taken an awesome stab at it. I think, by the way, a lot of the thing that is yet to be done that could be a lot of fun to make is not just the spreadsheet kind of GUI of it, but what people really want. I think, out of finding another job. There's kind of obvious things like, someone just wants to know how much money could I make at X? And so it'd be neat to build like a product that just gave you that number automatically. But I think people are really curious, like, who am I going to work with? And who are they like? And what are they like? And I know they like me. And I don't know, I just thought it would be funny to build something that let you filter based on that. Like, maybe I can just find people that have the same subreddit subscriptions that I do or whatever. Because I think a lot of the fun of work, especially at the earlier stage business, but really any team, is being with people you kind of really like, and maybe Kiter or someone else. I think it's really interesting to think about the job search as a little bit of a dating app, which I don't think has been really touched on, that I think is the main cause for hesitation that a lot of people have. What will they be like on the inside? Anyway, I wouldn't slow down. If anything, I would speed up. Actually, the opposite is true. I think if you have zero competitors as a startup and you don't have a good answer to why you have a few competitors, you should be a bit alarmed. So,
yeah. Great stuff. Yeah. If anything, like Daniel said, as fuel, knowing that someone else has identified something as an interesting idea is even more reason that you should be working on whatever idea you're working on. So, all right.
All right, we have one more project in the tournament that we're going to review, and that is Elpis Academy. And they would just like Nathaniel from Nigeria would just like landing page feedback.
Is this a little to the right for me, or is my screen?
It's not just you.
Okay.
yeah, you have an issue where it's like set on the viewport sizing or something. It's just the hero image, I think. The rest is fine.
Yeah, the rest is responsive fine. It's just the hero, which is a little to the right for some reason. Anyway, that's the first point of feedback. First thing I noticed. All right. So if I'm understanding this correctly, you can create an online class in Zoom and support payments and a bunch of other things for running your class, which is awesome. So I kind of understand this from the tagline. A remote learning tool for online classes, I think, is a pretty good summary of what you guys are doing. Okay.
I think, by the way, I mean, this especially, this is an idea that is, I think, especially interesting in Africa, Nigeria, than Africa, more so than any other continent, just because of how unstructured general schooling is, which means that it's much more bound to happen through YouTube and Zoom, I think, than it is like here in the US, where every single school has a system that they use, and selling to schools is hard. So it's actually, I think Africa may get much more pickup because it's much more decentralized in a company like this. And I wonder actually if it makes sense to optimize for the African continent as a market, maybe ex South Africa, over the United States, just because everyone in the US has tried selling in ed tech in the past, and it's really, really hard for a bunch of complicated reasons. And so I'm sure there's it's funny here, it says total earnings here in NGN, and ironically, there's a activate Windows watermark here in the back, but that's very cool. It seems like the more you could do of that, the better. Like the more I would customize for Africa, the better.
Yeah, I think you could definitely lean into that more. I guess it depends on how people are discovering you. But like Daniel said, having started a tech company in the past, that it seems like internationally speaking, I can't speak to Africa. I don't have as much experience there, but certainly in like China, the either culturally or for other reasons, the desire to spend on ed tech is much more prominent than it is in the US with the way that things play out. So I think that if you're building something in the education space, I do think it's even better to be outside of the United States. So that's definitely a plus here. So potentially even leaning into that more based on the description here, but that's great. I would say a few things. This is maybe more designy, like the second thing here. I think that the text here can probably be displayed a little larger. It's a little small right now, and maybe with accompanying graphics. I think one of the things that it's nice to see when you're scrolling down a landing page is kind of like what the product looks like and how it ties into the things that you're offering. And this seems like a great place to do so. Like how you can accept payments, when you say an advanced instructor's dashboard, having a visual of what that dashboard looks like for the instructor, I think is great here. You have a few of the stock in logos throughout here. But I think it's always nicer to show what your product does than describing it. So that's kind of my initial feedback. It's kind of it's a little nitty, but I think that the hero does a good job of kind of explaining high level what you're doing, but you can definitely flesh it out a little bit more in the second section here. Yeah, but yeah, no, this idea makes sense. I think it's definitely a good start.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, next up, we're changing up our usual schedule for this sort of for this event that we do. In our day-to-day, we end up finding interesting websites on the internet at Pioneer, and today we have a handful of them for us to look at live and give some feedback to. Hopefully, we won't have questions from these folks, because I don't think they actually know we're doing this. They're just websites that we found that we think would be worth a few minutes of our time, and hopefully we can give them some interesting feedback. Also, hopefully useful for people watching to get a sense of just what kind of interesting projects are out there that sort of catch our attention as being a little bit different.
All right, let's get started. First one, called Foom. Smart sales funnels for Shopify stores. Create powerful recommendations and acquire more customers. I think this might be a stock video, but that's an interesting thing. It looks like this is going to be a video for the demo of the products once that launches. So
yeah. Otherwise, this is a trailer for a movie.
Yeah, it's a big bug bunny. But the layout here makes sense. Kind of understands what this is doing from the get-go. Smart sales funnels for Shopify stores to, as I understand it, you kind of, if you're running an e-commerce business, there's a few things you're trying to optimize for. Obviously, you want people to buy your products, but before that, you care about things like what are they adding to their cart, where are they dropping off, what products are they clicking on, all these sorts of things that are important. And it's the job of pretty much every kind of Shopify store to have knowledge on like where they should be optimizing their flow or what products they should be focusing on, where they're going to better optimize the drop-off rate, etc. So the layout of this page makes sense. It's a little I'm not sure what the right word is. The spacing between sections is maybe a little slim, where it's kind of nice sometimes when you scroll down to be able to like the sections here look a little close together, but I think it does a decent job of explaining kind of like what it does: analytics, tracking flows, generating reports, etc.
One thing that there's a lot of products that exist, not for this particular niche, but funnel optimization, and you give us your access to your analytics, and then we'll give you some actionable insights. The one thing that I find these landing pages for some reason never include is like, what is an example of an actionable insight? Like, and it may be hard if you're early, if you haven't even launched yet, but I think it'll go a long way for someone to understand what is the value that they could possibly be provided, to get a sense of doesn't have to even apply to me, but what is an actual thing that could theoretically be done that I might not know that I'm doing, that I'm not doing.
Yeah, no, you bring up a great point there, which is like, how much of the landing page presuppose that you already know the problem that you're that you already know what the solution for your problem looks like. Because maybe one of the jobs you should be doing as a landing page is showing the customer like, hey, we have this thing, but the reason why you care about this thing is for this reason. So basically, like, you have a product, but then you also have a kind of a solution, if I were to put like a sales term on it, right? And that solution is kind of what you're selling to the customer, which is like, the reason why you want advanced analytics is because you can increase your revenue. Very simple example here. But what you want to communicate to the customer is that you're increasing your revenue, which looks like this. And this is the way you do it, is through their analytics, right? So that's an interesting point, which I do see a lot of companies do when they pitch, which is they kind of talk about like the cool features they have because they're proud of like, we built this like really cool thing, and like this is like a cool feature or whatever, instead of saying like, oh, is this solving this problem? And if it is, like, this is the problem that it's solving, right? So I think it's like a slight nuanced way of looking at a problem and pitching your solution, as opposed to pitching a feature. So I think that's probably the main thing that I would get away from this as well. Cool.
By the way, I mean, I think this type of stuff can be bang out success. Just like if you view fundamentally the trend Shopify started was like, you have these people selling online with software engineers building their stores and whatnot. We want everyone to be able to do that. But then you could kind of view every other part of a large e-commerce company that can afford to hire people as something that needs to be unbundled into a dedicated thing. So like maybe Shopify is the bulk of it because it's the engineering team, but this could basically be the entire data science team. And I imagine there's something similar you can do for the legal team for Shopify stores and the audit team for the Shopify stores and whatnot. And so I think this is the kind of thing where, I mean, obviously if everyone uses it, you have an optimization, problem, but that'd be a great one to have. It should theoretically be easy to make it successful. It's used by Cuvée Coffee. Not that I know what that is, but it sounds cool to say.
Mm-hmm. All right. Shall we move on to the next one? Next one. Aurelio, advanced therapy application for anxiety and depression. Simple yet powerful ways to control and analyze your moods with cognitive therapy techniques. The first thing that comes to mind is that there are a lot of these apps, kind of all like slightly different, that I've seen kind of prop up either web apps or iOS apps or what have you. That it seems like this has always been an area of interest of mine, and the space has definitely picked up a lot in the last year and a half or so, probably riding the tailwinds of the pandemic. But it feels like there's been more in this space than there has been in previous years. So the first thing that comes to mind is kind of like a lot of places talk about using CBT or some other technique, or like to help you manage whatever it is that you need to manage, for in this case anxiety and depression. I've always wondered kind of like how do you differentiate there, if you guys are all kind of offering a similar framework for managing these things. How do you what differs between each of the apps? But it definitely the Hero, I think, does a good job of explaining what it does. I think it's just because I have this prior knowledge of seeing a bunch of these products. I'm wondering kind of like how it's all different. Okay, so create records, create hierarchy.
Why is this homepage good? I mean, it clearly is good, but what makes it good?
By the way, I just minimized it a little bit because I think it was meant to be a little, I think it was meant to be viewed like this. I don't know if it changed at all for you guys, but.
Yeah, when I view it, I don't know are you on a big monitor?
Yeah, I'm on a big screen. So
okay. Yeah, it looks on a MacBook screen, it looks less exaggerated.
Great question by Daniel here. Like it looks like the first thing that goes look that I think it was, this like landing page looks well designed, laid out, but like what am I looking for? Let
me refine it. If there was just one thing that made this landing page work, what would that be? Like this one takeaway.
I don't know if this is the answer that you would give, but for some reason, I like this yellow highlight and how it echoes for the rest of the page. I don't think this is something that is like everybody would say, but like, so their logo is black on yellow. They highlight the problem that they're solving on black on yellow. They highlight each of the things that they do to help you solve that problem with the yellow for each of these like product snapshots. And it just creates a nice like palette of, when I look down, what my eye is eventually drawn towards are the things that they want my eye drawn towards. So that's what I like from this, as well as like the pretty clean layout of like product snapshots, and then the call to action both here and here. It's like kind of just checks the boxes for what, yeah, just checks the boxes for what I'm looking for, I guess. What is it for you, Daniel?
Yeah, it was interesting. I was thinking, like, if you were to ask me this weekend, when we were reviewing websites, what do you remember? I would say kind of just the aesthetic of the. I don't even think it's totally black, but the dark gray on yellow really stands out. I think that's kind of well done. I think the rest of the homepage is a bit weaker, actually. The blue button stuff works well, and the check marks, no credit card, free trial, that somehow in the brain says that it's a well put together company. I think that visual aesthetic is, when you scroll down, it's less satisfying somehow. You just don't understand what the product is, I think. Looks like a Google form. Yeah, it's neat. I do think that's it has the aesthetic of, actually, it looks like a landing page. Oddly, I don't think they've done this, but I guess what they've been inspired from is like a landing page of a highly optimized SaaS business. Is kind of what it looks like to me.
One thing on the copy front, I think if you're building this product and you have these features like thought records and a fear ladder, now it's possible that I'm just not familiar enough with this, but I think framing it a little bit differently might be easier for someone who lands on the page and doesn't have the context. For example, record your thoughts may just be easier for someone to understand than thought records. Doesn't frame it a little bit from this perspective of, if I'm reading this, I actually understand, like the phrase itself makes sense to me as if I'm reading a narrative.
This is kind of a callback to what we were just talking about in the previous one, right? Where what's being shown here is like you come in with a knowledge of CBT and other things that are associated with this, this case, thought records, fear hierarchy, etc. But if you're just coming in saying, I just want to manage my anxiety and depression, you might be a little overwhelmed by like the terminology being used here. And you're like, I have no idea what this is and what it's doing for me. So again, like thinking about who your target user is in mind and who they are and kind of what they might know coming into your site, I think is probably one way of deciding how you want to frame your copy here, where instead of saying like, using the terminology like a thought record or something like that, explain what it's doing for the user, like what problem it's solving for them. But yeah, it's a good point, Rishi. So cool. This is just something I noticed. Did they change that? They also changed the highlighting on this page to mirror the color of their yellow, which I thought was just a cool touch. It's not anything crazy, but I was like, wow, that's like, I like it.
I like that.
I honestly didn't even know you could do that. So yeah, that's cool. All right, shall we move on? All right. Next one we came across I've seen this before, this imagery. Revolutionizing portable technologies. Introducing the Volt Air 1. Over-the-air wireless charging for all your devices. So stick it in your pocket, leave it on your wrist, and it just charges. This is kind of interesting. So basically, what this is trying to say is that all your smart devices are going to be charged wirelessly without you needing to do anything. Definitely not as snappy of a landing page as the last one we saw. I don't know what it is about it, but like having like the background image stay still as you scroll down to me, with this like kind of awkward white on off-white background, seems a little weird. I'd probably change this to put the thing that you're doing, which is over there charging, kind of in the forefront, and explaining that, as opposed to what's being done here, where a lot of real estate is being used at the top of the landing page without very much explanation of what you're doing. So I think there's probably more that can be done here, like taking more of this and sticking it up here. You may not even need this, honestly. So, and the next thing is that the 3 points here that we've seen over the last 3 landing pages can be, I think they can be improved spacing wise. Maybe that's not the most important thing right now, but it's not as like clearly defined sections, which I think is what you're looking for a landing page. I guess the main feedback I would have here is how much of a problem people think this is, which is like, I don't know if you guys use wireless chargers at all, or have one. I just stick mine into like I stick in the lightning port, but kind of identifying like the problem. If the problem is like, you want your devices, all your devices to be charged wirelessly, kind of pointing to the reason why, like, why users would care about this, I think is one thing that I might have higher up in the landing here.
Well, wireless charging became a thing. Like people like the convenience of putting their phone down on some pad of some sort, as opposed to plugging it in. So I guess 2 questions. One would be, is that getting adopted as much as people would hope? And then number 2 is the leap from charger to charging pad the same as the leap from you never have to take your watch off, or you never have to take the phone out of your pocket?
Mm-hmm.
Also, another question, is this just going to kill me? Like, are we like, I think I'm not going to be the only person with that question.
5G? Yeah. Yeah, no, there's definitely a few questions that I think come to mind that would be nice if they were answered by landing here, but yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Is the current getting pumped through your body? Is that the idea?
I'm guessing it's just an electromagnetic field, but somehow they've mastered the tech so that it's like a concentrated directed field or something. I don't know.
Yeah, it's okay. Cool. That's interesting. I think one, by the way, simpler version of this that I always thought would be interesting is if you just made a backpack where you could just have a wireless charger on the surface of the entire bottom of the backpack. So you could just chuck things in your satchel and just know that they'd get charged. And I think that would kind of work. You wouldn't have to electrocute yourself. Of course, the age-old question that no one's really figured out is how to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. You know, the battery draining problem in American obesity, meaning there's so much stored energy in your body. It's just hard to convert that to an energy that your iPhone can use to charge. That would be fun. Anyway, a bit of a different project.
All right. I think that's all we have for this session.
We're gonna do
let me see.
Teaching how you
Yeah, I guess we can do one more actually. So this is just another landing page that we came across. The first thing that the first thing that I noticed, I guess, is the spacing. It's a little it uses like I guess one useful thing from this landing page is that you can use the entirety of using like the entire horizontal spacing makes it a little bit harder for you to parse. It's usually better to have it a little bit more closer together. I'm guessing what this thing is doing though is a Zoom-based tutor session for free. So basically teaching you, giving you a better, it reminds me a bit of like the Coursera course, teaching you how to learn. If you guys remember that one, that was kind of popular back in the day. A course on.
I'm blown away with stuff. There isn't like a breakout company that does this. Like, you want to learn a skill. There's so many people that have skills. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm missing it, but there's no platform where you can like have Thumbtack for like finding, maybe it is Thumbtack, but like someone teaching guitar, piano, all sorts of random skills that people have to tutor you in. Math.
The tier between masterclass and peer-to-peer.
Yeah, it's really mind-boggling. And yeah, and to your point, by the way, in masterclass, maybe like part of the class is they just shove in a YouTube video and you watch together and you can ask them questions. I don't care. It's really fascinating. Someone will do this, and everyone will be like, "Oh, like that was pretty obvious." Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, Andrew, what do you think? Do you think there's maybe sometimes the market doesn't lie? So like, this is just a bad idea.
This is one of the things that I kind of have trouble seeing become like a really, well, for one, the obvious reason is that there hasn't been, I can't point to a company today and be like, or a thing today and be like, yeah, this thing was really big and it solved this specific problem, which is being able to learn more effectively. The biggest thing that I remember is like people recommending this Coursera course, which was like teaching you how to learn and saying, oh, this is a great course. Like more people should learn this, should take this course. But I don't think that it's something that a single like for-profit company can solve well, just because I think it's way too complex of a problem, where there's usually, when I think about companies and startups going after a problem, it's reasonably like well-defined. I think that something like this is so different for so many different people that it's a lot harder to stick. And if you think about it this way, there's an entire institution of education that is supposed to help you solve this problem. And even there, it's not solved for the majority of people. So I think that it's not going to be like a tech startup or a company like that that's going to solve this sort of thing.
Interesting.
What I do like about this, though, is that if I were to start to solve this problem, this is a way I would get my data, which is be a single person starting a tutor session with a user, getting hands-on with them, and seeing if my approach works. That's kind of like what I would do if I was like a founder with limited resources that wanted to do something that totally didn't scale, to see if this approach to learn would work and is worth productizing. So I think that's the interesting part about this, is like, this is definitely super early. They don't even have a product yet. It's probably some dude just giving Zoom tutoring sessions. But I do like that they are, if you're going to take a very lean approach of solving that problem, like this is a good way of doing so.
Yeah, that seemed like a good beginning. I still think this kind of thing should. I think one of the issues is the internet has a real challenge with synchronicity in strangers. Like it's not. I don't know. We haven't really solved that problem of, ideally, like you're watching a YouTube video, someone teach like a guitar thing, and you have a question, and boom, you should immediately be able to chat with them. And
Twitch.
That doesn't. I guess Twitch, yeah. There's no way to, I don't know, like a platform you can kind of easily toggle, from asynchronous to synchronous. They're very different modalities. Maybe it's maybe it's just like a fundamental platform difference. But I always thought that would be interesting. Or in GitHub, I feel like we all have this all the time. You're using someone else's repo, and you're kind of like, I'll even pay you for an hour just to walk me through whatever. And it's just anyway, cool. Very exciting. Innovation knows no bounds, no countries, and no market limits. But I'd say that.
You'll be happy to know, Daniel, that when we did the intro without you today, we had one person in the YouTube live chat say, I think you missed you saying "Another Great Day in Paradise."
Oh, it is true. And as you can tell behind me, I've already transcended into another galaxy. So I am in paradise now, and confirm that it is indeed great.
Excellent. All right. Well, until our next day in paradise.
Good stuff. Stay safe, everyone.